Hi, and welcome to the Introduction to Smarter Balanced Assessments. As you know, the Smarter Balanced Assessments will be replacing the WKCE beginning in the 2014-15 school year. The last administration of the WKCE is then next fall in 2013. In the spring of 2014, there is a planned full-wide pilot, full-scale pilot of the Smarter Balanced Assessment. So next school year we'll actually take the WKC in the fall and the Smarter Balanced in the spring. They're going to do that probably most importantly to make sure that everybody can utilize the technology so that when it counts for the first time, everybody is familiar with how the technology works and to make sure it actually works in your school. And then they'll probably do a little bit of equating between the WKC and the new Smarter Balance, so we might get to see a little bit of information there, see how things have happened in between those. What the Smarter Balanced is a new computerized test. It's a computer adaptive test which allows you to, in a shorter period of time, get a better read of exactly where students are at. As students answer questions, the questions will get harder if they're getting them correct. It will make them easier if they're not getting them correct. So as it zeroes in on the student's level, it will change the types of questions. So that means that if you have a classroom full of students working on the assessment, chances are that none of them will have the same question on the screen at the same time. So that should help take care of people looking from one screen to the next. It probably won't help them much. Today what we're going to do is we're going to look at what the Smarter Balanced Assessment questions look like. We did a 3rd and 4th grade pilot at Shepherd Hills and a 7th and 8th grade pilot at West Middle School this spring to understand what it looks like, figure out what the types of questions are. We wanted to kind of test the technology and see both our hardware needs met, and then also what kind of skills do the students need in order to be successful. What we found is that overall the technology went fairly well. A couple of little things here and there that we were aware of, and a couple that we found out. But the most striking thing that all the staff and students who observed the questions really realized is that these questions are very rigorous and challenging. And so what we want to do is we want to start looking at the types of questions that exist in Smarter Balanced and make sure that we're teaching to those standards and also utilizing similar expectations in our classrooms so that when the students see questions like this, they won't be so perplexing and they'll be fully prepared. What you'll see on this is we're using the State Department of Education in Oregon as a sample because they have a really nice setup for a lot of sample questions. We're going to spend some time looking at sample questions, and the majority of the time is going to be looking at how do you need to change your assessment in your classroom in order for students to be a little bit better prepared for Smarter Balanced type questions. There's some information that comes along with that. If there's a scoring rubric, there'll be scoring rubrics on the sample questions, and some of them, depending on the type. It talks about the type, and it goes by grade level. There is something that Smarter Balance use, which is claims, and they break them into 4 claims. It's really the type of question that's being asked. So is it a problem-solving question? Is it a procedural question? So they're broken into these claim areas. Smarter Balance is attempting to get an assortment of questions and focusing really in on the style of question and the expectation of questions, not only by these claims but also by the type of task that is asked for. So as you can see here, claim 1 is concepts and procedures. Then we have links to the different grade levels. At the end of this video, there's a place on the T drive that houses this PowerPoint itself, so you can then go in and start clicking around on the live links here on the video. I just wanted to give you a little bit of sample of what it looks like. So then you've got the second claim, third claim, claim 4, and then it goes into English language arts. So we'll just pick a 6th through 8th grade claim 2, so it's a writing piece. If we click into one of those, what you can see is it breaks it down by grade level, and then after each one it has a couple of little letters that says it's a performance task, it's extended response, it's selected response. So you go through and you can just choose the questions that pertain to you. If you're not teaching English language arts or math, what you want to do is you want to kind of poke around and really examine what the questions are asking students to do. You'll see here in these writing type problems that it's really applicable to really any subject area. Seeing we have school-wide performance goals as part of the accountability system. We have school improvement goals. Really, everybody in the building is responsible for improving writing and making sure that we can enhance our learning of content through writing pieces. And so you might find some things in here and realize, oh, if I just changed it to this type of content, it would really look quite nice. So I'm going to pick invasive plants at 6th grade. And so what it does, it talks about what claims it has. Kind of goes through a bunch of information. Let you read it over. The depth of knowledge, DOK, is it's like Bloom's taxonomy. There are only 4 levels of depth of knowledge, and the 4 would be the highest level. So that this means that this is a really complex task. The goal of Smarter Balanced was to ask more level 3s and 4s if they could, and try to limit the 1s and 2s so that they could cut down on some of the questions and try to get at deeper understanding. And so in this case, it gives you some information. So in this case, they're reading an article, they get a fact sheet, they're looking at some information there, and then down here somewhere, they have a third source, another blog entry, another written piece, and then in this case they would be given 105 minutes. This test is an untimed test, except in certain areas. So this question in particular, they're telling you get 105 minutes to do this, and you get 35 minutes to kind of read all that pre-work, and then you get 70 minutes to complete a full task, and it wants pre-writing, drafting, revising, and as I said, that this one might have an actual time limit. The test itself is an untimed test, so students can take as much time as you counsel them into or out of. But we want to make sure that time is not the factor that determines whether or not they can answer questions. And so there's directions for the students, and then there's some questions that they'll ask and answer, and then somewhere probably down here at the bottom, it tells you how the essay will be scored, so both for the student and for yourself. And then most of these are how many points you get in your rubric, and so it gives a simple rubric of how these will actually be graded on the day of the assessment by Smarter Balance. And it really breaks down into a couple of different rubrics, because it's measuring a couple of claims and a couple of different targets. So they provide a rubric for each part that they would be scoring on. So what you'll see here is we have a bunch of different questions. What you should do is you should take some time as a group and look at a few questions. The main purpose here today is not to find out whether you can do the questions. It's really to figure out what types of questions are being asked. How are we doing this in the classroom? Are we doing this in the classroom to a level that we can expect to see on the Smarter Balanced? Are we doing this in every classroom? Do we ask these complex questions? Are we doing enough to prepare students for the style of questions and the expectations that are within those questions? So that's really the main focus here. We want to limit getting into too much debate of whether it's a good question or a bad question, or my students can or cannot do this. And it would be great if you talked about how, if you shared examples with your colleagues about how you are doing some of these things, if you are, and others are wondering how they can do that. This would be great to do a little bit of sharing of types of things that you do to help prepare students for these Smarter Balanced questions. As I mentioned a little while ago, every single classroom is really impacted on asking these types of questions, because it really goes into our accountability system. It will affect our report card scores, and so we all have a stake in making sure that we're asking questions that challenge students and get at the heart of the Common Core. At the end of the PowerPoint, there are a bunch of resources that you can utilize, and so take a couple minutes and explore those. And where you can find the PowerPoint is in staff information in the in-service folder for this year. Take some time. As I said, you can start with a group effort. Take a look at some of the questions. If there are more computers in that classroom that you're in, go ahead and break up into small groups if that's easier to work that way. There will also be a list of computer labs that are available so that you can break into groups as well. But the whole point here is make yourself more familiar with what types of questions are in Smarter Balance. As I said, this is really just an introduction, but we really want you to understand that these are complex questions, that we can start asking these types of questions even at kindergarten. They don't have to be in a written format. We might just ask these types of questions orally. In other subject areas, same thing. In a Phy-Ed class, you might not have this as a written piece of work, but you can certainly ask students to justify their answers and give support. So we really want to make this a concerted effort, and hopefully it's an interesting exploration today, and it will really make you think about how you're assessing in your own classroom, and how we assess as a district, and continue to move us forward. Thanks, and have a great day.